what's going on, everybody? So I'm back at it again. This time, just digging a little deeper into this whole Nicki Minaj, Kenneth Petty, Jennifer Hughes situation, right? So for those of you that don't know, right, Nicki Minaj, and I'm gonna try to summarize all this stuff, but I have at least one video on my page. I'll try to link that to the end of this video that goes through this situation in more detail. It doesn't go through it in complete detail, but it goes into it in greater detail. But just to give you guys a summary of what's been going on, if you're just watching this video for the first time, what's happened is that Nicki Minaj has had this childhood sweetheart, right? And of course, she's getting older, and I was actually surprised to find that she's like 43, right? And from my point of view, she was desperate to find somebody. And the reason I say that she was desperate to find somebody is because I look at the chain of events, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong. My personal opinion that, Nicki Minaj is so attractive, she's so voluptuous, she is so beautiful that you would think that she can just go and get any man she wants. But it's not that simple. And I actually don't really like Kevin Samuels a lot, but to me, it just seems like she's kind of in that Kevin Samuels trick bag or paradigm. Whereas, she's beautiful, she's attractive, she's successful, and she's getting up there in age, and it's difficult for successful black women to find a man. So as a result, they end up with men like this, right? So you guys let me know what you think about that. Comments below. But that's the conclusion I come to, because when you look at the chain of events, she was with Meek Mills, and to me, Meek Mills seemed like a pretty cool kid, right? He seemed like a cool guy. And one of the people that actually watched one of my videos, they were saying that he was an abuser and he abused Nicki Minaj. I really wasn't aware of this, right? Because I haven't been following Nicki that much. But anyway, she leaves Meek Mills, and then of course she's getting older. I think she's about 43, and I hear her on Twitter. I hear her on social media, hitting on who is it, Michael B. Jordan. I heard, if I'm not mistaken, I think she did go out on a date with Nas. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments below. But because of the chain of events, to me, I just thought she's older and she's looking for a mate, somebody to actually have kids with. And here comes this guy, her high school sweetheart, or someone she probably had a relationship when she was younger. And this guy, in my personal opinion, he's just not worthy, in my opinion. He's just not worthy. He's not worth someone as attractive as Nicki and who's made as much money as Nicki. That's just my personal opinion. I've already been chewed out by saying things, by saying stuff like that. People tell me that he deserves to be whoever he wants to be with, and Nicki deserves to be with whoever she wants to be with. And I just think that's not true. I think we are probably just living in a fantasy world, and we've watched too many Disney cartoons where you can kiss a frog and then that frog turns into a prince. Or you look at Aladdin, and you take Aladdin, and then Aladdin is this street scum, and he ends up marrying a princess, right? So I think that's the mindset that a lot of people has. But I offer a different perspective, and that's the perspective of when you sleep with dogs, you wake up with fleas. And I think that's exactly what's happening here. She's sleeping with proverbial, right? She's sleeping with someone who basically isn't on her level, probably mentally, maybe mentally, I don't know. But Nick is just on a different echelon, right? So I think that she may have had a street mentality, and that probably got her to where she is, right? But now that she's on that level, I think, in my personal opinion, she has to start thinking differently, right? And again, guys, I mean, I've been getting chewed out. A lot of people have disliked the videos that I posted on this, but I think the reason for that is it's really due to a younger generation watching my videos, right? I think someone that's older, around 43, 44, 45, is going to agree with me. They're probably going to agree with me, right? This is the type of guy that you play around with. This is not the type of guy that you have kids with. In case in point, so what's happened is that she has rekindled the flame with this guy. They've had a kid, and it turns out he's a registered sex offender, which we're going to get into in a second here. And he's also a murderer, right? So you take a guy like this, and you have to ask yourself, what can a guy like this bring to the table? And at the end of the day, the only thing, in my opinion, what he's brought is that he's brought chaos and craziness into Nikki's life. This is just my own opinion. You guys let me know. Whereas if she was lucky enough to get with somebody like Michael B. Jordan, and I do realize Michael B. Jordan probably never would have worked because he was way too young for Nikki. It probably could have worked where they had kids together, but I don't know that Michael would have been ready for kids. And I think Nikki would have been mature enough to have kids with Michael B. Jordan and probably let that be it. But I don't know if Michael B. Jordan would have been mature enough to actually have kids. And not to get into a tangent conversation, but I think when you're on the celebrity level, I think that you have so much money that life is just different from the average everyday Joe, everyday blow Joe. And I think that maybe you have to look at marriage differently, right? So if you look at Will and Jada Smith, they actually have an open marriage. And everybody's known this for a very long time. I kind of knew it when I saw a movie that Jada directed. It was called The Contract, and it was a movie whereby this lady was in a relationship and she had a husband, but she was just out having fun, meeting new people, and her husband was okay with it. He was cool with it. And I thought to myself, for Jada to direct a movie like that, she's basically telling us something, telling us something or whatever. So I think those are the type of relationships that are going to work for people with tons and tons of money and have this celebrity status because they're in a situation where they're being hit on all the time. So in a relationship like that, I think they have to really be able to love the person that they're married to, and they have to have a strong connection. And I think that having sex with somebody else can't be a deterrent, or it can't be a deal breaker, because you'll just end up with divorce all the time, right? So that's just going off on a tangent. That's my own personal opinion. So, getting back to this whole Nicki Minaj situation, I just think that this was the wrong guy to have had a baby with. And the reason I say that is because you look at where she is now. She's now in a situation where she's being sued for $20 million. Now, guys, you have to look at this. Win or lose, whether or not Nicki wins or loses or not, is not really the issue. The issue is that she's being drugged into this. And let's say she does win. But I strongly believe that her baby father or her husband is going to lose. Some people say they're not actually married. Some people say they're married. I don't know. But the thing about it is he's going to actually lose this, because one thing people aren't considering is that the lawsuit addresses two things. Number one, it addresses the assault that was done to Jennifer Hugh way back in 1996. So it addresses that, right, from a civil perspective. Now, some people are saying this thing has gone on. This happened over, 20 years ago, and he's already served his time. How in the world can she come back and sue? Well, she can, right? And what you have to understand is that people are coming back 30 and 40 years later with no evidence, and they're able to sue. This is the Me Too area. This is the Me Too era, right? So if you put that aside, you put aside the fact that this is the Me Too era, you're still left with the fact that whenever a person is criminally convicted, the court can always basically issue a criminal restitution judgment, right? And I talk a little bit about that in the video series I have called, it's basically called Post Judgment Proceedings, but it's on a federal level. But all state civil procedures are based off of the Federal Code of Civil Procedures. So in every state criminal procedure, if there's a victim, there is the possibility of getting restitution for that victim. So in this case, because of the way everything played out, there was no criminal restitution, but it could have easily have been it could have easily have been awarded. So I think, regardless of the fact that the person is spending time in jail, they typically would spend time in jail and they would have to make criminal restitution. So don't be thrown off by the fact that he's already spent time in jail. It doesn't matter, because if they would have filed for the criminal restitution, then she would have gotten it. She absolutely would have gotten it, right? Because he already pleaded guilty to the conviction. So don't be surprised that she's coming back now after he served his time. I don't believe it matters if you have some case law, not your opinion, but some case law to say, hey, a person can't come back after 20 years after this guy has already served his time and asked for criminal restitution. Post that case law at the bottom in the comments, because that's the case law Kenneth is going to need in order to fight this case. Me personally, I don't think that there is anything that's going to stop a person coming back for criminal restitution. I don't think there's anything that's going to stop that. I think they could probably make some arguments to say, hey, well, this is 20 years old and the victim hasn't done anything. The victim has had a lot of time to come forward and make this claim, and she hasn't. And right now, the perpetrator, Kenneth Petty, is under extreme hardship, and he doesn't have any place to live, and so on and so forth. And therefore, under there's a doctrine for this. There is a not I want to say equitable stop, not equitable stop. But there's probably a legal doctrine that he can use, and I'll probably look that up later if anybody's interested. But they have these equitable doctrines to say that, this has been too long, and the circumstances of the defendant, it would be unfair because of the circumstances of the defendant, Kenneth Petty, to put a judgment in like this, so on and so forth, right? But that doesn't keep the person from making the argument. That doesn't keep the person from coming forth and asking for it. Kenneth Petty would have to fight to win a case like that. Perhaps he could ask for a jury trial then, and try and convince the jury to basically try to defeat a claim like that. But the claim is good. In my personal opinion, the claim is good. And like I said, if you don't believe me, you'd have to watch the video called Post-Conviction Proceedings that I made. And they have actual code that says a person can not only have you locked up, but they can also ask that you pay them restitution for the crime that you did to them, right? So there's that. So long story dull, what I'm trying to get to is that a loss for Kenny is a loss for Nicki Minaj, because you started off with the guy who basically had all these problems. And now you have a kid by this guy, and he goes off to California. And when he goes off to California, he, for whatever reason, doesn't register as an offender. He doesn't register for whatever reason. So now this whole thing has kind of been drugged back up, because now he's at risk of going to jail, right? So in order to defeat the possibility of him going to jail, now they're in the situation where they have to contact Jennifer, and they have to try to get her to recant her statement. And common sense would tell anybody that if she may have recanted upon the first offer, right? So according to the alleged documents, right, the alleged allegations filed in her lawsuit, Nicki Minaj contacted her and said, well, first there was a third party that contacted her, and then that third party gave Nicki Minaj her phone number, and Nicki Minaj called her and said, "Hey, we heard you can help us out." And after Jennifer turns you down that time, you almost have to stop. And Nicki goes on to basically continue to try to contact her directly and indirectly. And now you have this situation where she's able to claim harassment. So you have this situation where you've selected, in my personal opinion, Nicki has selected the wrong man to have kids with. And because of that, they are in a situation where she's being sued for 20 million. And even like I said, even if she walks away and she beats it, Kenneth is not going to beat this. And a loss for Kenneth is going to be a loss for Nicki, because how are you going to allow your man or your baby daddy to walk around with a judgment like that hanging over his head? Yeah, he can get around the judgment. He can work for cash, and he can do deals under the table, but he'll never be able to do anything on a legitimate level or above board, because the instant he does work above board, what's going to happen is that Jennifer is going to garnish his earnings, right, or his assets. And everyone knows that you can start a corporation and basically work through that corporation and make money, and that corporation has protection against individual lawsuits. People know things like that, but those corporations can be pierced. And once the corporation is pierced, then the individual can seize all the assets that's due to Kenneth in those corporations. It can be done, right? Now, there's other corporations that you can start where you don't basically give your name, right? I think that's probably in, I forget where there is, but there's a state that don't list the names of the owners of a corporation. They could pursue a route like that, but believe me, if he does anything above board, and he's going to be known for doing anything above board. I've heard rumors that he was trying to get into the music producing business. He's not going to be able to do that with this hanging over his head, because he's going to be constantly going back and forth to court. Case in point, look at 50 Cent. 50 Cent was sued for an obscene amount of money. I forget how much it was. And what he did was he went to bankruptcy court and he got bankruptcy protection so that he can find a way to deal with that, right? So it's a serious thing. It's a very serious thing, and I think that had Nicki chose a better man, she wouldn't be in this situation, and her man wouldn't be in this situation. But enough about that. That's not what this video is about. I just wanted to give a little bit of background. And again, if you're thinking about chewing me out for saying that Nicki deserves a better man and she could have had a better man, so on and so forth, I've already been chewed out about it, but go ahead and leave your comments below. I just simply think that there are certain laws in the universe that we must follow. And if we don't follow these universal laws, then we're going to suffer the consequences. And I think Nicki is suffering the consequences of choosing a bad mate right now. And let me know what you think about that. Questions and comments below. But if she had chosen someone that wasn't a criminal, she wouldn't be going through this, right? So again, that's enough of that. So what I wanted to point out is that I wanted to point out a sad truth about all of this, right? There was something that I noticed, right? So here is his criminal record. This is his criminal record. And what I wanted to point out is that when you look at this section here, it says designation, and then it says no designation applies. It's going to be really important. Just hold on to that for a second. It's going to be really important. But this is this isn't his criminal record. This is his sex offender registry details, right? But pay attention to his risk level is 2, and his designation, basically there's no designation that applies, right? So then I was thinking, well, what other opportunities does he have, or what are some of the other routes to removing his name off of the the offenders list, right? And basically one way is to harass the individual to recant, or you pay the person off. That didn't work. So what are the other ways, right? So one way, it basically says corrections law 160 section 168 says when a offender can ask to be removed from the registry or changes his or her risk level, the way to ask is by filing a motion. So they have to file a motion. So then I just dug a little deeper, and it basically tells us corrections law 168, and this is actually the same thing, right, that I've just read. So just digging a little deeper on this, and basically we look at the actual 168 petition, and it says petition for relief or modification. Any offender who is classified as a level 2 risk, right, and that's what he is, that's what we confirm. We'll go back. He's level 2, right? This is his risk level. And who has not been designated as a predator, right? If you can't see this, change the fonts on your screen so you can see the words in detail. But anyone who has not been designated as a predator, a violent offender, right? A violent offender, or a predicated offender, right? Who is required to register or verify pursuant to this article, and who has been registered for a minimum of 30 years may be relieved of any further duty to register upon the granting of a petition for relief by sentencing the court or by the court which made the determination. So basically, this article is saying that if you've been on the registry for 30 years and you don't have a designation of a violent offender or a predator, or things of that nature, or predicated offender, then you can come back and ask that your name be removed. So right now, he doesn't have those designations, right? He doesn't have those designations. So that means he would have been eligible to have his name removed off the list, right? Now here's the killing part. So this crime is alleged to have happened in, what was it? This crime is alleged to have happened in 1996. So that basically puts him at 43 years old, right? So basically he would have had it. So this happened when he was 16. He would have had 3 more years, and he could have removed his name from the list. This is the crazy thing about all this. Absolute craziest thing about all this. I'm not sure what happened to make him decide that he didn't have to register anymore, but the dude only had 3 more years, and he could have removed his name from the list, or he could have applied. He could have applied to remove his name from the list, right? And if you guys are interested, I can make a video on what should go into that petition to actually ask the court to remove your name from the list. But he was eligible. 3 more years, and he would have been home scot-free. Now you have a situation where he's already committed a violation, and I wonder if that in 3 years, if he tries to remove his name from the list, if they would let him. Because that's the tragedy behind all this, because now not only did you not register, now you have actually been accused of harassing your victim. So how are you going to get your name removed from the list in the next 3 years? Because they're going to look at all this. They're going to say, okay, you didn't register. And to get around not registering, what you did is that you harassed the victim. And he could probably win this case. He could probably win this case, and they're still going to look at that. They're going to say you were an offender and you basically didn't register, and to try to get around that, you basically harassed her. Yeah, you beat that case, but we still believe you harassed her, right? And then she could possibly show up at the petition to have his name removed and speak out against him, right? So this is just some crazy stuff. I kind of feel bad for Nicki for being in this situation, but to be honest with you, I think she just made some very, very stupid moves. And I think when you have a lot of money A lot of times you just think that you're above the law and you can just do whatever you want to do. And that tends to catch up with you, So that's it for this video. I'm pretty sure a lot of people are not going to like it, but that's my 2 cents. Please leave your questions and comments below and let me know what you think. And please share this video. Thanks for watching.